welcome to Gratitude Space.
Hey, it's good to be here. Finally, this took a while.
Yeah, but it's you are good at communication. I've been, I'm sure you have too, where you've talked to people and they're not good at all. So you've been really good about getting back to me. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. This is a lesson in not giving up, right? You
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I understand that, man. You're easy. I won't get into it, but I got an interview recently from somebody. I originally reached out to them in an email in 2017.
Well, all right. So I'm doing better than that.
Oh, you're excellent. I'm just saying you're a true sport. You're wonderful.
Well, it's good to finally see you. We've been talking for so long on the phone and on Facebook and by email, and it's nice to see you and have a sense for you by the nature of this call. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to give people a backstory, I feel like I reached out to you back in 2015, and I'd read your book and I'd seen you on Facebook, and just was overwhelmed with the community you had. Really, is what it was. It was overwhelming how much just to see so many people engaging in a space like yours, in the positive, just the positive message that you put out there. This really moved me. And then the fact that I reached out to you and you actually, with that big of that big of a following, to actually connect with you, really, it excited me and inspired me. I just wanted to let you know, I wanted to share some gratitude to you. You doing that interview for Gratitude Space is a really big deal to me, man. A really big deal. I don't know if I ever really told you. I know I thanked you, but I don't think we didn't talk in the sense to express that, you doing that for me was such a big deal at the time, because it allowed me to feel like I could ask people with these, to seek out these people that I would go, I don't know if I can reach them because they've got such a big following, or, just gave me the oomph to go, well, I'll just go ahead and, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Your interview was spectacular. I loved the interview. It's just the fact that we connected and you did this wonderful thing for me really had an effect on me moving forward.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm sure it was a very mutual experience. I'll have to go back and read that interview. It's been a while.
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a long time. So.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, Paul, could you? So go ahead.
I was going to say, hopefully there'll be some consistency in my messaging from a few years ago to now, but we'll see. Maybe things have changed with me too, so we'll find out.
Maybe that, or you just adding a little more knowledge to it, because they're pretty open format questions. So I'm sure it's good. So Paul, could you, opening up here, could you just tell people a little bit about yourself if they don't know you already?
Sure. I actually trained as a therapist, got involved in healthcare administration for work. Now for my real job, I run a nonprofit in New Hampshire that has about almost 500 employees, and we serve people with developmental disabilities and brain injuries, and also elderly people. And the whole emphasis of that side of my life is keeping people who might not have everything going the way they would like in the community safely and productively and living a good life. So it's our sort of tagline is creating opportunities for a good life. And we recognize that we can't necessarily give everyone the good life, but we want to even the playing field so that people with disabilities and people with brain injuries and elderly people have an opportunity to have the best life that they can in the community. So it's all geared around keeping people out of institutional care, living in the community like everybody else, and it's wonderful work. I've been so fortunate in that side of my life with my career, in that I've even though I trained as a social worker, never did what I thought I was going to do, which was more counseling and one-on-one therapy, I got to do sort of my heart's calling, which was to be of service in some small way to people. So that's that side of my life. And then about 10 years ago, I wrote my first book, which was called Begin with Yes. And it started with just the title and not a lot of content. And I have a friend who is, Mark Schoenfield is his name, and he wrote a Broadway musical um, from New Hampshire. He's somebody that at one time was homeless himself, and and he really accomplished this amazing thing of writing a Broadway musical and then getting. He had no connections in New York, and he got that show on Broadway, and it ran for almost a year. So he's an incredible marketeer, and so I was having lunch with him, and I run ideas by him, and I ran that idea Begin with Yes, and he immediately thought um, that there was a lot of energy and feeling in that title. And then I went back to and looked at all the. I do a lot of public speaking in my other work, so I looked back at like probably 6 or 7 years of um, speeches really that I had done, and found that I had this common message that tied beautifully to the title Begin with Yes. So that's sort of how it all started. And the writing is kind of it's a process, I think, just like our conversation today, where we don't know exactly where it's going to take us. And so I used, in writing Begin with Yes, I used a question and answer format because I thought that sort of was in my blood, that therapy, conversation, wanting to talk to people, and by doing that question and answer, I would present a thought or a piece of information, and then that would lead to a question in my own head, which I thought might be in the heads of other people who were reading the material. And so it sort of took on a life of its own. And at the same time, I was developing the social media page, and for anyone that's starting a social media page, at the beginning, it can go very, very slow. I can remember after maybe even a couple of years, I was at 10,000 people, which I thought was great because I know very few Facebook pages even reach 10,000 people. So I was very excited about that. And then I started picking up steam, and the level of engagement on my Begin with Yes page is really, really strong. So there's a real sense of community, lots of sharing, and people posting my posts. And then I can remember one weekend, um, I was in Key West with Michael, and we were walking down the street, and I'm always checking my phone.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that's a positive, but I'm one of these people, and all of a sudden it's like something happened, and it was like 10,000, 11,000. This is while I'm walking. Like every time I looked, there were like 2,000 more people or 4,000 more people, and it was like it really then took on a life of its own. And I think it just reached that tipping point that people talk about, and then we got to 1 million, and then I thought, I mean, that was my goal was 10,000. I thought I thought that was a home run, and then when we got to 1 million, I just was obviously thrilled with that community, because again, the community is very engaged. So it's people sharing, talking, adding comments, adding thoughts, asking questions, supporting each other, and then fortunately it continued to grow, and now we're at 2.1 million, I think, right now. So it's the bigger that social media site has gotten, there's a tendency to, well, you can't connect with everybody in the same way you could when there were 50 or 100, 200. Right. But I definitely have gotten great joy and spend a lot of time being present to that community myself. And so I've been able to sort of maintain that sense of we are all part of a community here. And let's keep talking. So, and then from Begin with Yes. So that was my first book, and then I wrote several other books after that, and they were all self-published, by the way, through Amazon, which I'm a real advocate for self-publishing. And then my last book, which I felt certainly it's called Be Amazing, and it sort of continues in the same vein, but it was, I feel and do still feel that it was totally new material. And because I had the following on Facebook, I was able to get an agent in New York, and then my agent in New York was able to get a traditional publisher. And so with Be Amazing, I went the traditional publishing route. And that book's been out for about 6 months. It's doing pretty well. And I think the jury is still out. Of people ask me, would I self-publish or would I go with a publisher? I don't have enough information to tell you that one is better than the other. So, but self-publishing absolutely worked well for me. And so if anyone's listening to this and writing a book or thinking about writing a book, the door is wide open to you to make that happen. So there you go. I'll try to do shorter answers.
Oh no, it's fine. This is fine. No, it's great, and I completely. You know, I've been working on my book this whole year, and yeah, so you know, self-publishing is the way to go. Unfortunately, you know, people think it's a non-starter if they go, oh, I can't write a book because I can't, you know, it won't be released. Well, you have no excuse. Let's take that off the table.
Right, exactly. That's really true. And now, I mean, the publishing world has really changed. I would not have gotten an agent or would not have gotten a publisher if I didn't have 2 million. So they were not so much interested in me as they were interested in the platform. So
right.
I would certainly encourage people to put energy into that as well.
Getting started with a couple of these questions, and we are going to go back to Be Amazing because I did read it, and I want to talk about that for sure. So what does being grateful mean to you? Like if you were, say, for example, if a kid came up to you and you just wanted to simplistically explain it to them, how would you go about doing that?
I think it's about being aware. It's about paying attention. We tend to be bombarded, and social media definitely contributes to this. We tend to be bombarded with things happening all around us, and I think we become maybe overstimulated in a way, and we forget as corny as it sounds to stop and smell the roses, it's that just pausing for a minute and reflecting upon what is actually happening around me right now. I am breathing. I am smelling food cooking. It's a simple sort of reconnecting with what's real in your life. And I think when you do that, and I've been thinking about this a lot, Chris, it's like being in this, and this may be contrary to what you think, and please share your ideas too, but it's not being in this sort of artificial, constant state of being grateful for everything without recognizing that there are also other things going on in your life that are scary and unsettling, and especially in these times. And so more and more, I feel like it's about finding a balance that if we try to encourage other people or talk to ourselves the way we all do, and of ourselves or each other to be grateful all the time without recognizing that there's also challenges in life and there are difficulties and there are things that are not perfect. And so I think if you can find that balance, then you're more open to authentically having feelings of gratefulness. Um, so it's I guess that boy, if I tried to explain that to a little kid the way I just explained it to you, he would be getting on his skateboard and going down the street as fast as he could. But I think it's a feeling of appreciation for what is happening.
That's beautiful, and yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you know, I even writing the other day, it was like, you know, it would be nice if we could just be in a state of gratitude 24/7, but that's just not realistic, and it's not realistic for a lot of reasons. Obviously, you know, if you're going to be present for somebody, I can't be. For instance, I'm right here right now, so I can't be thinking about. I'm going to be focused on Paul in my conversation. I can't just be thinking, oh, I love the water coming into the, you know, and then the air here is nice. Now we can talk about that stuff, but I can't be sitting with that in my head if I'm going to be paying attention to you or being focused on what we're doing. I think what I've been digging into recently is just the mindset of you know, a friend of mine has this really great Mind Valley talk, Rajesh, and he had this, it was really simplistic. He said, put everything into two categories. He's like, they're either gifts or they're lessons. So it's the mindset of knowing that anything that's going on now, you may not be able to be grateful for it right now because you're in it, but at some point later, you know, just with the mindset of going, okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be able to look back at this. There are going to be things, and there are things in tragedies that you can look back on later that, you know, I mean, from my, you know, I could straight up say, you know, with my mother passing away from cancer, you know, I can honestly tell you, I was grateful that she wasn't in any more pain. You know what I mean? Straight up. I mean, you know, she taught me a lot of things when she was living in that pain. I'm really grateful for those lessons. You know, and then you can look at aftermath of things. The only reason we're talking right now and having this conversation about gratitude is because of my mom. If that hadn't happened to me and all the letter I wrote her and all these things, you know, obviously everything builds on itself and you get, you know, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know, I talked to an amazing man named Teddy who owns it's called Grateful Peoples. It's a journal, gratitude journal, and he has a nonprofit. You would love this guy. He's I think they've had 20,000 of these books donated. So they're in middle schools where kids are practicing have gratitude journals in their school, which just blows my mind how amazing that is. That's one aspect. I could go really far into his story, but what I want to say is like what he said to me was so beautiful. He said his mom had I think it was MS growing up. And he basically came to the point where he had gratitude for her health condition because he realized that either he could be angry about this and have this pain, you know, have this anger, or he could just go, this is my mother. I love my mother. It's so beautiful. You know, again, you know, and obviously he didn't wake up in that moment. That's something he had to come to, but right. Just to be able to look back, because his mom passed away a couple months ago, and we were supposed to do an interview, and all this stuff was going on. But he had this really beautiful perspective of how much he loved his mother and everything he does with his nonprofit and these journals. His mom was a massive part of that. So, you know, so I'm kind of ranting there, but I'm with you. You know, it's just obviously things are not good, but if we know, it's like a safety blanket, somewhat a safety blanket idea. It's like we know it's there, but at any given moment we can choose to change focus if it's just for a moment and think about something else. It allows us to step away from our grief and pain, which is sometimes all you need. It's just knowing that's possible, knowing that the raft's there, knowing that there's something to grab onto. Obviously, you can't hang on to it like we were saying. You can't just say your life can't be this, you know.
Yeah, I think that's really an interesting idea, Chris. It's that sort of recognizing how powerful our thoughts are and where we place our energy. And so I think that telling people who are having trouble paying their rent right now, or getting food on the table, to look on the bright side, I think is um, is is not a kind thing to do. I think that
Right.
um, people need to. I don't think people need platitudes. I think that they need role models, and and to be around people who are willing to let them be authentically who they are, dealing with what they're dealing with, and then, some of the most grateful people are people with less rather than people with more. So it's not about things.
It's
Um,
not. Yeah.
so I, I don't know. It feels to me like sometimes the people that have the most challenging lives also go to that place of feeling grateful for other things more easily than other people who seem to have more um, going for them. So it's an interesting um, dynamic that we could probably talk about for a whole hour. So it's a state of mind, I guess, and it's being. I think we do have the capacity to kind of rewire how we think, and so if we're around people who remind us gently about the good things in our life, or if we naturally can begin to identify them ourselves, then we still have to deal with the realities that we're presented with, um, and there are lots of very challenging realities in the world right now. But even then, find opportunities by switching gears, by just saying, okay, I'm going to stop thinking about that for a moment and discover something here that I'm grateful for. And it's like we're surrounded by miracles. We just never notice them because we're too busy paying attention to other things, right?
Right. Totally. And that's something in your book I did make note about. You talking about that. Yeah. I was. You're. That's a good. You're talking about people in these hard times, and obviously somebody going up to their door and knocking and going, what are you grateful for? Obviously that would be a really negative and bad, just a horrible experience for anybody. But on the flip side, if you're a friend to somebody going through it, it's completely different. When I'm around people I care about, and I know they're talking down the road of negativity and just pain that they're bringing. I know that with psychologically, they're putting themselves back in that place, and it isn't like this is a constructive criticism thing. This is just them being in a dark place. I do my best because I'm a friend. I can sit there and listen, you know, and I can let them know I'm listening. But then I can, because of the way I am, I know them enough to go, well, isn't this nice? Or, which is just because I feel like, what are you going to, again, I'm not there to, I'm just do a little misdirection, just a little misdirection for them. Because obviously, whatever they're talking about, I can't help them in that. I can listen to them, be a friend, but I can't fix, I can't, say somebody's saying they can't, their money's tight about rent. I can't fix their rent.
Right.
You know, but if you're a friend to somebody, you can be there with them, which is the most important thing. And then you can obviously redirect some thoughts, if not for a moment, and assist them with the anchor.
And, to me, it just occurred to me that if you can cry with somebody, then you're more able to laugh with somebody too. And so it's allowing both of those experiences to be authentic. It's sort of like it's easier for me to get to a place of gratitude if someone's not pushing me there, but someone's
Exactly.
holding the door open for me. So, and I think that's what we can do for each other. It's not. I see those flashes of lights too. I'm not sure what's causing it, but
That's okay.
okay.
It's fun.
But anyways, flashes of light, flashes of insight. So anyways, I think that we are definitely on the same page, and I think sometimes rather than forcing um, a sense of gratitude onto somebody that's not ready to receive it, being present to the person where they're at, and having some thoughtful discussions about how you might get to a different or better place would be how to hold the door open as well. So,
Right. Yeah. If you can assist them in opening their minds to the possibility this isn't the end of
right.
the world.
Yeah.
Right. So,
My favorite
yeah.
expression, one of them is now what? It's because it's like, it sort of evokes action, which kind of circles back to begin with yes, because I used to think um, yes was the more powerful word in that book title, but it's really, I've grown to believe it's the begin, it's the doing something, taking action, moving. And I think that that is the start of so many other things. Even if what you're doing doesn't seem related to the project that you are focused on, it's like you might be wanting to write a book and you're sitting there looking at that blank paper, holding the pen, and you just that thought's not coming. And so, instead of sitting there, I would say get up and clean out a junk drawer or get moving, do something, because it's that activity, that's action. And I know that a lot of people would say sit and be still and reflect on the moment. And I think that there's definitely time for that. I'm I tend to encourage people, and it's just because it's I think my own personal style is taking action, moving, doing something gets you moving, and then things begin to fall back into place, and then you eventually find yourself back at the table with a thought to write. But trying to force a thought to come when it's not coming is counterproductive, as I bet you've discovered from time to time as a writer.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I do remember reading that in your and Be Amazing, and that did stick out to me. I feel like that's actually one of the things I copied in here about you
Okay.
know about getting out and moving. So I completely if you're stuck, don't give up, but take some time to separate yourself. Again, focus your mind on something else. Just taking a walk. I think that's a brilliant idea because obviously you're sitting there, you got an issue, and you're overthinking it probably.
Right. And maybe the action you take is to walk around your neighborhood or your house and identify things that you're grateful for as an exercise, because that I think shifts your focus, your energy, and brings you to a better place.
For sure. I've got a gratitude question for you. It's a little bit of an experiment I'm doing. So I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to answer until I ask you to answer. Okay. Because I just want to, it's just a level, it's a level thing. Um, so the question is, who in your life are you grateful for? So get a name in your head. Don't say it. Okay. Now we're gonna go one more deeper. Who in your life you're grateful for? So get somebody else in your head. Okay, you got that? Now we're going to go one more deeper. Who in your life are you grateful for? You got that person in your head? Okay. And obviously this has nothing to do with order of importance. I asked the question that way because most people go to the same person every time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm curious who the third person was.
The third person was my former wife who passed away from colon cancer about 10 years ago. Um, and um, so I did, each time you asked the question, a different person floated into my mind. And she was the last person because we shared a very unique and really amazing friendship. Even though we were separated and I came out as gay
Mm-hmm.
much later in our marriage, and um, but even though we didn't stay together in a marriage, we stayed together in a friendship. And so my three kids and now my grandchildren all got to experience how two people coming apart can still be a beautiful thing and something to be grateful for. So I have a lot of gratitude for Susan, and in fact, I dedicated "Begin with Yes" to her, and she was very close to passing away when the book was finally available, but she did get to read the dedication, so I was really happy about that.
That's beautiful, Paul. Thank you, Susan. Beautiful. Thank you. That's wonderful, man. I appreciate you going to experiment with me again, because obviously the problem is I put it on paper and I try to do that. You can't do it because people overthink it, because it's not about order. It's not about order of importance. It's just about who's popping in your head.
Right.
You know, it's just about what's the trigger. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, in paper, writing that down, that people overthink it and still think they have to. Well, I'm going to have to say this person because
Right, yeah, because they'll be really hurt if I don't mention them or right.
yeah. Just because, yeah, that's the funny thing too, right? It's a combination of things. There's like the person you go to, then there's the person you feel like you should go to.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you ask me to tell you the people in my life who I'm grateful for, I could go through a very long list of people that are currently in my life and are not, and some
Right.
people who
Of
haven't been
course.
in my life for 20 years who are coming back into my life. So it's a fascinating journey.
Yeah, I was talking with uh, friend Chris for the podcast, and they've done case studies, and basically, I think he said that it's either 40 or 50% when you ask somebody the question, who in your life you're grateful for and why, 40 or 50% automatically fall on the mother or father. That's just number one. And I get that. Don't get me wrong. I'm there. And even Chris, I was talking to, he was there. But the great thing about it, when he told me that, I was like, well, this is why I want to go. I want to go a couple levels deep. He even went further and said the study said that in America, most people fall on their mother, but if you go into like Asian, the continent of Asia, most people would fall on their fathers because of this customs, which is kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, so, so I appreciate you going through that with me and sharing Susan with me. So let's pivot to your book. I know I've got a lot of notes here, and your book, Be Amazing, Discover Your Purpose, Conquer Your Fears, and Fulfill Your Potential. So obviously, I don't know if I have more questions here or more. I just wanted to talk about what I wrote down here. So for example, I like the fact there's no chapters.
There's no what?
Or no, there's no specific like
Oh,
chapters.
yes.
It's like an open form. It just feels like it's an open form journey. I really love I love the fact that you bring that you're acting like you're having a conversation with somebody else. I like the fun. I really appreciate the fun engagement in having this character, which isn't technically a person. You're not naming the person, but they're engaging with you, allowing more of an open dialogue. I like that format a lot. I know you did that. You did do that with Begin With Yes, right? I'm sorry. I know it's been a couple of years since I read it. So let's see here. So I got a lot of notes. So let me just, I really loved the Maple Counter Cafe. I love how you built it, how you kind of built the storyline around this amazing place. How about you talk a little bit about that? Other than
Yeah, I mean, because
and,
yeah, it's like uh, it's like I've written I think 7 different books, and they were sort of building on Begin With Yes, and I was at that place where I had more that I wanted to explore, but I didn't have an idea of where I was going to go. And we were out in Walla Walla, Washington at a wedding um, with a lot of Michael's friends, and we had asked people what's the best place to get breakfast, and people said, oh, downtown, go to the Maple Counter Cafe. And so we stood in line. It was a Saturday or a Sunday, I can't remember. So it was a long wait, as really good breakfast places tend to have on the weekend. And but everyone was in good spirits, and we were enjoying. It was a nice day. We were outside and enjoying and joking and hanging out. And every 15 minutes, the hostess would come out and say, "Hi, everybody. We haven't forgotten you." It was just they were engaging with the people rather than just letting them stand around waiting. And then we went inside, and we were a big party, and we sat down, and the chef brought out this great big apple pancake and put it on the table and said, "Thanks for waiting." Um, and um, so I took notice of that because that was kind of an unusual thing. Um, and then the server came over, and everyone was really friendly, and there was a lot of smiling, and the staff were interacting with their customers and with each other. So there was this community-like feel to the place. And then you know how some restaurants you can't do substitutions? Well, this place, whatever you wanted, they could do. So that was just their attitude. So tell us what you want and we'll make that happen. And then the food was really great. And I come from New Hampshire and I was over on the West Coast. And so I wasn't expecting that they would have real maple syrup. I visit my kids. I have 3 kids and they all live in Florida. And every time I go there, I say, do you have maple syrup? And they bring out make-believe maple syrup. They think that's maple syrup. So I'm always surprised when someone has real maple syrup. So the Maple Counter Cafe, to their credit, had real maple syrup. And so I'm sitting there thinking, and I was I wasn't an outsider, but I wasn't, this was a group of people who'd gone to college together. And so I was off to the side a little bit, just because we were there with Michael's close friends. And so I had time to think, and I was thinking, this is an amazing breakfast. The food was really good. The atmosphere was really good. They had real maple syrup. And I began thinking about how many breakfast places are just okay. And the difference between just okay and amazing was not rocket science. It was really kind of simple. And so then I began, honestly, at that table, this book, Be Amazing, began to take shape in my head, because I realized that if you could identify what amazing would look like for you in any particular arena, then that's all you had to do. You had to just accomplish that to be amazing. And so in my book, I give lots of examples because I'm trying to help people see how this works for people at all different places, doing all different kinds of things. You might want to be an amazing friend or an amazing grandfather. I want to be an amazing grandfather. That's one thing I want to do. And so I say, so this is sort of like the theory of how you do become amazing, which I believe is how you're meant to be. And you simply say, well, what would an amazing grandfather look like to you? What would an amazing grandfather do? And so it's a very personal question. And you, when you get older, you might answer that differently than how I answered it. But what's key is, how do you answer that question? So to me, it meant remembering my grandchildren's special days, like their birthdays. Having conversations with them that treated them like they were complete people, like with lives, so that it wasn't sort of I think a lot of people tend to have superficial relationships with their relatives because they see each other on special occasions and birthday parties, and so they are glad to see each other, but there's no time for really deeper conversations. And so I thought an amazing grandfather would be someone who could go deep into conversation with their grandchildren. And also, an amazing grandfather would be silly and fun and be different than being an amazing father.
Right.
So once I identified those things, then I knew the pathway to be an amazing grandfather. Now that doesn't mean that I'm a perfect grandfather. You could,
Right.
but if you talk to my, it's funny, my I feel like a real strong attachment to all of my grandchildren, and they range in age from graduating from college to being in the 3rd and 4th grade. And so I have different relationships with each of them. But I learned so much from my grandchildren by having real conversations with them. And I think what they get out of it is a real relationship with their grandfather. So it's not a symbolic kind of relationship, but it's a real relationship. So that theory then works like if you want to be an amazing physician or an amazing neighbor or an amazing grocery clerk or whatever it is that you want to, amazing gardener. It's sort of like, then you say, well, what does that look like? And then once you know what it looks like, then you've got your sort of marching orders. You say, this is how I'm going to move in that direction. And it's so simple. It's so basic. It's like, how do you be an amazing restaurant? You be nice to people. You have good food. Um, and you act like the people are important to you. And you offer like the free pancake. How much do you think that costs them to put a apple pancake on the table and say thank you for waiting? But it created such an impression in my mind that I
Right.
wrote a book based upon it. And so it's not that hard. And so I really, I look around now and I see all these people that are just not going that extra few steps. And so they're settling for being an okay place. Okay. And there are many more okay breakfast spots.
Right.
And I love bakeries and cookies and cupcakes. And there are so many okay cupcakes. But if you're going to go to all the trouble to make a cupcake, why not make it amazing? Right?
Right.
Anyways, you don't have to buy my book. That's it. It's like you are here to be amazing. Um, you have a sort of what I call in the book a spirit blueprint, but it's an
Mm-hmm.
inborn purpose, a reason for being here. You have passions, and unfortunately, as we grow up, many times we're taught not to pursue our passions because they may not be practical, or may not be in line with what somebody else thinks is good for you. Um, and so I think more people than not tend to push their passion off to the side. And so I'm saying, hey, rediscover that passion. You know, what really makes you happy? And I saw an interesting meme the other day, and I can't record it exactly, but it said something like, if if you're feeling exhausted all the time, it's probably not because you're only working too hard. It's probably because you're not spending some of your energy doing something that you really love to do and feel called to do. And that really resonated with me. We all have to earn a living. We have to pay our bills. We have to pay our tuition if we're going to school. Um, and so there are hard and harsh realities around earning money. But I would really challenge everyone, no matter how hard those realities are, is to keep hold of that passion too, and find ways to if you think of it as a flower, to water those flowers occasionally too. You can always find 5 minutes, even if that's all you can find. You can find 5 minutes. I talked to her, like I don't even know if I wrote this in the book Be Amazing, but she was a woman in her 80s, and she always wanted to learn how to play the piano. Um,
Mm-hmm. I think
she
you did
also,
have this in
I
Be
did,
Amazing. Go
oh
ahead,
yeah,
though.
um, and and she also wanted to write her autobiography, but she just didn't think she had time. And so we talked about how just a little time in each of those arenas would be enough to get her started, and she did both of those things. Um, but it's like, if we, I guess that one of the things I think we have to learn how to do is not be so overwhelmed by the bigness of what we want, and focus on little steps and begin with yes. I talk a lot about little steps, and so um, you can always find time to take one step towards the direction of something that you want to make happen. And if you if it takes 10 minutes and you've only got five, then make the step smaller. And if it's a 5 minute step and you've only got 2.5 minutes, make the step smaller. Or do something for yourself. And I think people are having this opportunity to bloom and become enlivened, and and then by doing that, you probably circle back to being grateful again, because um, you're sort of aligned in a way that makes sense for you and the universe and your purpose, and what makes you happy will probably make the people around you happy too.
For sure. That's a great, doing what you can opposed to doing nothing. Yeah. So I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and they're like, well, if you want to get into gratitude, just write down 3 to 5 things, in the morning, just write it, and I think that's a great baby step because that takes 1 minute, and it's as
Yeah.
simplistic as, listing 3 things off. I think that's a great step in the right direction. That would be like your beginner,
Yep.
and then, later on you could go into like, you could take one of those. I'm thinking of like a process. I've been thinking about like a class process, so like a tier structure, so that would be your beginning. That allows you to take that baby step because it's so simplistic and anybody can do it, and it takes 1 minute. But after you do that for 30 days, you could decide at that point, okay, I'm going to take one of these things and I'm going to express why I'm grateful for this, because when you start your mind, because I call that like the third dimension of gratitude is what I call it. So it's about gratitude taking roots.
Yeah.
So, it's very simplistic. I've talked about it several times. You can go, okay, I'm really grateful for water. Okay, so why are you grateful for water? I go, well, it's there's pipes bringing into my house. It's being filtered by somebody. I can make coffee with it. I don't have to go out to get it. There's so many. I bathe in it. There's so many levels to that one little thing. Obviously the fact that I don't have to go at an outhouse to use the restroom. There's so many. I don't have to worry about. There's people in parts of the world don't have water. They got to travel miles and miles. They could be killed along the way. It could be poisonous. Geez, when you start to think about the simplicity of, that's the third dimension, and that idea works with people too. You know what I mean? Which is really great because then you're digging into. Well, I'm so grateful. You got to think about, for example, I go, okay, I'm really grateful we're talking right now, but there's a lot of things that had to happen for this to happen. Let's just go back to your story. You had to write that book. You had to get that website. You got to get on Facebook. All these people had this. You had to have this following, and then somehow one day, I'm on Facebook and I see you. But the only reason I'm reaching out to you is because of my past, my mother, and all those things that you know what I mean? Like, it's an overabundance of gratitude for all these little things that make what we have right now.
Right. Yeah, it's this giant puzzle that seems to be operating out there, and if we start playing around with the pieces a little bit, they begin to fall into place. I think. So that's. The story you just told there was really a beautiful one. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I keep thinking about, that would be step 2. And then step 3, if I'm putting a course together, would be what I call gratitude squared. And that's when you actually initiate somebody to share their heart. So for instance, I asked you and you that question and you shared her with me. That's gratitude squared because, for example, me sitting here going, I'm really grateful for this, this, and this, that's really great. But me asking somebody and them sharing it with me, and then us having that engagement is so much more powerful. And I don't think unfortunately, I think people do it and they don't know what's happening. And the origins of my story and the website, when I had that moment where I had Kate's letter the first time in front of me and I was crying after it and I didn't know why I was crying. And it took me a moment to go, what happened here is this exact process. What happened was, this beautiful letter that exists, and it's a thing that exists and it's living and it's digital and it can be shared anywhere and in a heartbeat. I can send it to you after this conversation. Only exists. This beautiful letter she wrote to her parents only exists because I asked her to write it. That's it. You know what I mean? And that's a powerful thing because when you're just like you're sharing, you're having somebody share their love for somebody openly, and it's coming out, and I could see it in your mind. You know what I mean? And I get to ingest that gift. You're giving me a gift. I'm asking you, and you're giving me a gift, and it's powerful, and it's reflection, and it's just so much more.
And it's as you're sharing that, I'm reflecting. My mind is going back to what I was saying about my grandchildren, and having those kinds of conversations with them. If, what they offer back is truly a gift. In terms, I guess it's intimacy, isn't it? When
Yes.
you are, and that's something to be grateful for, is the opportunity to be intimate with another human being. Uh, that's sort of what keeps us sort of whole and moving, I think, in a positive direction. And so many people lack the opportunities for intimacy. So I've often said, I can fall in love with someone in an elevator, like in a 2-minute ride. It's just like you make contact, you look into somebody's eyes, you smile at someone. Even with your mask on, you can smile at people with your eyes, and you make contact. And that contact is very, very powerful, and very exciting, and very fulfilling, and energizing, and we all have that ability to do that. And so you did that for me by asking me that question. Um, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a beautiful. It allows people for a moment to get out of their head, and then they get to share something that share someone they love. And when we talk about things or people we love or places or experiences, we just feel alive, and unfortunately, most of the time, people don't listen, and nobody, people just don't go around asking people that question. Especially, and the great thing about it being a strange, sometimes it's somebody you don't know very well, is you can be more open because for example, if your family member at your function, you wouldn't be as open to them just
Right.
because of who they are, because
Right.
you have this relationship. You've already coined this relationship.
Right.
I don't express this and you don't express that. And
That's
so
true.
unfortunately, some do, but the restraints of the relationship is already built.
But that's a great invitation to shake things up in those kinds of relationships. Just because you've been that way for the last 20 years, especially with family members, what a great invitation to shake things up, be real, and see what happens. And I guess be real by inviting somebody else to be real.
Right.
It's a great gift. And if you're there to listen and to sort of take that realness in, then intimacy happens. And so I guess imagine that as sort of like an invitation to be amazing, more amazing with your relationships with the people already in your life. Um, and I mean, you can begin to do that with the very next person you see. And it's pretty incredible, pretty powerful, it's like we've got superpowers and we're just not using them.
Right. Totally. You do. We have a superpower. Gratitude, being present and making someone smile or being a part of somebody sharing love. I mean, that's just, again, it isn't, I've been recently thinking of this idea of like, it's almost like you're conducting. You're like a conductor of an orchestra. You didn't write the music. You didn't teach the person how to play the instrument. You're just there, just giving a little signal. And that's kind of, everything I think about what I'm doing, everything that, this podcast and all the interviews and the videos, they're just a way to signal people to go, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? It's just a signal to give a space for them to play if they want to. That's
Right.
it, if they want to, because you can't make anybody play.
Right.
But you can create a space that allows them comfortable enough,
Right.
to play, which is a powerful thing.
Right.
Because without the space, you got nothing. But it takes the person.
So yeah, and so that's a good reminder that if it doesn't work with one person, doesn't mean that it won't work with somebody else. And so and it's sort of like what I was thinking of as you're talking. It's like charisma, isn't it? Isn't that the ability to actually connect with people? And some people have this incredible energy around them. It's like a force field. It's like their ability to connect with lots of different people in lots of different ways. And I think it's that it's that it's like not to go religious on people, but it's sort of like comes from some other place that just comes through you, and I do feel like it's a power that we all have, and we have not, either because we've been embarrassed or shamed or taught not to do that, or a million other reasons, we don't let people see us as we really are, which is a great
Right.
way to give people permission to let us see them as they really are.
For sure. Yeah. I think, I think a lot of people are raised to say thank you, but we're not raised to say why, to really say why and what's going on. What are the mechanics of this thought process? Instead, it's just this is what you say. This is, A equals B. So I know you've got a little, we got a little more time here. I'm going to get to, I had so many things about your book I feel like you shared a lot of what I was going to say. I do have a lot, like I said, I did have a lot of notes. I loved, just going back to the top, I love the statement you said that the cafe, determined to create a place that smiles on the world. And I love that sort of smiles on the world. So like how can you create a life that would be smart, where people would think that, and that's amazing. I had the six qualities here. I wrote all those down. Having intention, that becomes your narrative, even if it's only one sentence long. Having intention, obviously, kindness and generosity, being accommodating, creating a community, being authentic, focusing on your passions. I just had so much stuff here. I was just stuck. Um, you know, you said so you gave a list of ideas of people that give themselves to why they can't be amazing. So I was thinking, people give themselves a long list of why they can't do this, and I was thinking how this relates to gratitude and why others think they can't be grateful. They're stopping themselves because they've already got a list of so many things to get through before they go, I'm grateful. So I thought that was really, I really love that. See here, you have the two fundamentals. Our thoughts are a willingness to take action. Let's see here. I loved your story about being on the beach and having a different experience between you and Michael. I think I love that story, and I love those. I think that there'd be a great just to have a book of those stories.
Yeah,
Short stories.
yeah, I agree with you. It's like it's the stories that people identify with, and the humanness of those stories. I think if I have one other last thing I could talk about for just a minute
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
how we sort of reframe, how we have the power to reframe things, our experience, and um, the sort of classic story, which is a real one, is a guy at the gym who is really a nice guy. I see him every day, or I haven't been going to the gym lately, but I used to see him at the gym every day. And I would ask him, how you doing? And if it was Monday, he would say, Mondays suck. And a lot of people feel that way. We've got Mondays, we've got hump day, thank God it's Friday. And so these kinds of messages seem innocent, but I did the math for the Mondays suck. And so this is not true about Mondays. This is just how this man has chosen. And lots of people have chosen or decided to frame what Mondays are going to look like. So I
Right.
did the math, and it wasn't my idea. I was telling someone the story, and they said do the math, and I did, and it turned out to be like 10 years of his life suck. That's a day a week, simply because that's what he's telling himself. And then I would see him at the end of the week, and he would say, "Thank God it's Friday." And I'm thinking, like, so it wasn't just Monday that sucked, but it was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday too. So we have this tendency to judge things, which I think may be human nature. It's like, that was a stupid movie, or the book was no good, or that's an ugly house, or
Right.
We tend to make judgments about things, which is human nature, and it's fine. I find
Right.
myself doing it all the time. But lately, not lately, for the last few years, when I find myself doing it, I've tried to recognize that what I'm really saying is, in my mind, that's what that thing is.
Right.
It's really, I'm labeling it, I'm calling it out as something. And so, um, and this really came home because I was driving with Michael and I saw this house and it just looked very complicated. It looked like they put on 100 different additions. And I said,
Mm.
oh my God, look at that ugly house. And he called me out on it. And he was right to do that because that was actually somebody's idea of a dream house.
Right.
It wasn't an ugly house. And so I'm working at this and I continue to catch myself when I'm making those kinds of judgment, and I try to reframe it. And so I reframe that simply by saying that wouldn't be the style of house that I'm drawn to,
Right.
which is much more neutral. Like that's an ugly house puts out, like I sort of believe we put out energy into the universe, and like that's an ugly house puts out ugly energy. And so if you can begin to see how you can reframe things, like I talk in my book, and I think you're mentioning this, is like on a it's 90 degrees outside, and some people say, "Oh my God, it's so hot, I can't breathe." And then other people say, "Oh my God, I love the sunshine, and it's a perfect beach day." And
Right.
so the day is the same. It's
Right.
90 degrees and it's very warm out. But people frame that different. And how we frame it then becomes what it is. We create our realities. And so if you realize that what you're actually doing and what we're all doing 24 hours a day is observing what's going on around us and then creating that as based upon what we have, the thoughts we have in our head, and then that becomes real. And that's not real. It's only real because that's how you're perceiving it. And so that's why relationships are so different because we don't all see things the same way. Um, and so if you can be open to the idea that how you're seeing this may not be how someone else is seeing it, then you open the door for there to be some conversations and some um, willingness to recognize that um, if we're going to create our reality, let's put some energy into creating realities that are more positive for us.
For
So,
sure. And yeah. Sorry. Go
no, I was
ahead.
just going to say, it's like, it's it's no fun to listen to people complain about how hot and miserable and humid it is, and it's no fun to be that person saying how hot and humid. And so it's sort of like, and I'm not saying don't ever complain because it's fun to complain, but I mean, take it down a notch. Um, Reduce your complaining by 25% if you can. And when you feel yourself getting ready to complain, turn it around, reframe it. And it's really easy to do. It's kind of a game, and it's kind of fun. And if you begin not to talk about how horribly hot and humid and uncomfortable it is, you'll become less hot and humid and uncomfortable.
Yeah, what you're focusing on, obviously. I think those stories are so great because they really drive home, like you said, it's who you are, not what's going on. And your quote in your book is from Anise Nin: "We don't see things as they are; we see things as we are." And
Yeah,
I, I think it just, I think that's just a great. They're just stories are such great examples of going, okay, you truly are making this decision. This is truly your choice. So you have a choice in it. Allowing people to know they have a choice in their misery or their happiness is, I mean, I just think those stories bring it home so simplistically. You have a choice in this. As
right,
soon as you decide a choice, at least know you have a choice. Okay, then you can choose. It's okay. You go ahead and say you have the pass. You keep going on. That's fine. Just as long as you know you have a choice.
right.
I think it's a powerful statement. Um, so along your journey with Begin with Yes and now Be Amazing, have you found any? Are there any other social media accounts or sites or apps or bloggers? Anybody that you would recommend us checking out?
Um, well, I have another. page I started this year called Be Amazing, which sort of focuses on that particular book. So I would invite people to find that as well. Um, there's a wonderful woman who's doing a lot of interesting work on grief. And she's written a book called Seconds First. And she has written another book. Her name is Christina Ramuson. And I can give you her website. She'd be a wonderful person for you to chat with.
Okay.
She lost her husband to colon cancer when they were very young. They had young, small kids. And so she did a lot of grief work herself and began in her early career, she was helping people deal with the grieving process, especially people that were stuck in that grieving place. But more recently, her most recent book is Where Did He Go? And she explores the afterlife in a very beautiful, meaningful way that's pretty powerful. So I would look for her book Seconds First on Amazon,
Okay.
and then find out and look for her other books and track her down that way. But she's a beautiful soul and a wonderful person to talk to, and I think the world of her. And so that's the one that pops into my head when you ask that.
Thank you. Thanks, man. I definitely will check that out, and I'll end up putting all in the show notes so people can check it out too. So in closing, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, but if what's one lesson that you could share with people that you could, one thing you would tell people, okay, if you want to get into gratitude, you want to become more grateful, I would recommend doing this. If this is something you're interested in.
Yeah, right. I would say it's really what you've been saying all along, Chris, and I think that is it. Sometimes we have to force ourselves to sit still for a minute and ask ourselves to name some things we're grateful for. It's sort of like we're moving at such a fast pace. We're trying to get so much done. We're trying to be amazing. We're trying to begin with yes. We're trying to make all these things happen and deal with all these things that we don't take that moment to just sit down and say, Paul, what are you grateful for? I think that the last thing that I would like to say is that I am grateful for you, because you were very patient with me, and being able to speak with you and see your face and get to know you. I'm grateful for a stronger connection with you now than I had before, which is kind of a sweet, good thing. So that's what I will keep that on the forefront of my thinking today, for sure. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Paul. I really, again, like I said, you being so kind now and being so kind years ago really had a huge impact. You've had a huge impact on me. So being able to finally talk with you and at least verbally share that, I mean, what your books are great and your community is great, but just you being this real guy that gave his time to me years ago, and now it really does mean a lot to me, and you've had a huge effect on my life, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for your new book, and I'm happy that I could read it and talk to you about it, and share it with people and these ideas. And like you said, they don't have to get the book, but we did share great ideas here, but if they want to dig into it, I think with books, obviously they don't have to get it, but the great thing about a book is you can sit down for 5 minutes a day, like we were talking about, and just give that time. And that's, I know I enjoy just sitting down for 5 or 10 minutes reading your book. And I loved also the fact that it's 100 pages. So it's just, it's anybody can pick it up and not feel like they're going to be, giving their life to read this book. It's more of you've helped. I want to thank you one more thing real quick. I know I've been working on my book, and I had this big memoir idea. And because I was reading your book and a couple other people's books that I'm interviewing, I realized, I got your book right here. I realized I was like, I just need a simplistic. I need a easily digestible, in the sense it's not long. I need a simply simply short book. I don't need, it's not smart for me. I love my story and I want to do the memoir one day. And ideally that could be down the road. I'm not letting that go. But right now, what Chris needs to do is I need to get a good book that does share my story, but shares gratitude. So, and it's simplistically digestible, because that's that's the best format for people to meet you. And, so I want to thank you. Like I said, it was you and 2 other books I read, that just made me go, I need to rethink what I'm doing. I need to make this simpler, because I'm over.
I do think that's one of the things people like about my book. And I should say that people can download Begin With Yes for free on my website, which is www.beginwithyes.com. So if you can't afford to buy it, there's a link there so you can download it for free. And I just came out with a Spanish edition.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, within the last 2 weeks. So I'm very excited about that. I'm trying to work with some friends of mine in Puerto Rico to get that into the hands of people there who they're having a really challenging time, as their people are in other countries as well. So that's what motivated me to get it translated to Spanish, and it's available on Amazon. And I'm working at making that available for free too. So please join the Begin With Yes community, be part of it, and just you and I will talk again soon, Chris.
Yeah, so okay, I'm going to tell people to reach out to you. They can go to Begin With Yes at Facebook, and also Be Amazing at Facebook. That's the best places to connect with you.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate all the time, man. I know I kept you a little later, so thank you.
Yeah, make sure I get this so I can share it on the Begin With Yes page too.
Oh, I will, for sure. I will. Thank you so much. Have a great day, Paul.
All right.
Thank you. All right, bye.